Once upon a time, and not so long ago, I was going on a job interview. Now, you can tell from the gray hair that this was not my first rodeo. So I woke up that morning, and I was nervous, and I wasn't really sure why I was nervous. I had been teaching a long time, and this was a job in a summer camp. But I woke up with that feeling in the pit of my stomach, that gnawing, biting feeling, and I thought, okay, I'll make this go away. So I got dressed, and as I was getting dressed, I started to think about, and I don't know why, my permanent record. Now, if you went to school in the 60s, and especially if you went to Catholic school, you might know about the permanent record. For me, there was always some nun chasing me down the hall in the school saying, "Miss Sangaline, if you are not careful, that will go on your permanent record." I didn't really know what the permanent record was, but you get a vision. So my vision was that it was a file folder. It had my name on it, and of course in big letters it probably said, "The Permanent Record," and it was in a file drawer somewhere, in a file cabinet. And if I wanted to go find out what was in there, I could, because after all, it is my permanent record. And then probably, as you got older, like in high school, things went in there like your transcript and your letters of recommendation for college. Again, in the file cabinet, permanent record, you could see it. And then when you get your teaching job, you have a real file, and that's got all of your tenure observations and everything. But I always thought that I could access it because it was mine. But the morning I woke up for this interview, I had this terrible feeling that now my permanent record wasn't in a file cabinet. It was probably a little tiny icon on a computer screen. And because I am not so technologically savvy, I was pretty sure that I could no longer access my permanent record, but that everybody else in the world could. And that was the feeling I took with me when I went to the interview. I arrived early, professionally dressed, and sat in the outer office. A woman opened the door and came and beckoned me in, offered me a seat across from her desk. She walked around and sat down. In the minute she took to walk around the desk, I looked around and I thought, okay, she's got papers, that's good, and photographs and frames, probably her family, and then of course there was a computer that faced her and I couldn't see, but I sat there gripping the sides of the chair, and she said, "I see here that you have wonderful letters of recommendation and an excellent resume." And you feel yourself go, it'll be okay. It's all going to be good. But then with one finger, she reached across and pressed a key on the keyboard. And she looked at this computer screen and she said, "I see here that we have some things that we must discuss from your permanent record." "You have my permanent record?" "Of course I do. I never interview anyone without looking at their permanent record." "And I see here that you had some problems with alcohol in the 7th grade." "Oh, I'm pretty sure that's inaccurate on my permanent record." And then I did smile and I said to her, "Oh, I have to tell you that story. We were going on our field trip to the nuns' bazaar, and my girlfriends and I thought it would be funny to take a little wine from our parents' liquor cabinets and put them in empty pill bottles and tuck them in our lunches. And I don't know what we were thinking. There were like 500 nuns roaming the area. Did we think we weren't going to get caught? Of course we got caught, but it was just a joke." "Mm-hmm," she said, and she did that pursing thing with her lips. And she looked on the screen, "And I see here, in the 8th grade, you threw a book out the 2nd floor window and hit the visiting Monsignor on the head." Well, I said, again, it was 8th grade. We were getting to graduate from our little Catholic elementary school, and we were just kind of tossing things out the window, and I threw a book out, and, well, hitting Monsignor Hicks on the head was just a bonus. It was a mistake. I did not mean to hit Monsignor Hicks on the head. And for a moment, I remembered that day exactly. I remember him storming up the stairs and holding up the book and saying, "Who threw this out the window? Whoever threw this out the window, speak up now or no one will graduate." And there was perfect silence. And I wondered if kids today would have that same loyalty to their friends. but nobody spoke. It was just a joke, I said. I didn't mean anything. But she went on through my entire high school career, and then she said, and I see here, senior year, you pulled the male gym teacher into the girls' locker room showers. Oh, all right, I'll tell you about that. It's on my permanent record. You're sure? Yes, right here on the permanent record. Well, you see, it was the last day of gym class. We were all completely dressed, and we all took Coach and pushed him into the shower. Now, Ann and I were standing closest, and so when he went in, we got wet, which would have been okay if we were in our usual green wool plaid skirts, but we were in our summer uniforms, lovely pastel shirtwaist dresses with a little straw belt, with about 100 pinch pleats that had to be ironed every night. And well, when we finally got out of the shower, we looked like the Catholic schoolgirls' version of the wet t-shirt contest. But, we were going to class. We were good girls, and we were kind of squishing down the hall, water in our shoes, when we heard the voice from behind. "Girls, come with me." We didn't have to turn around. We knew it was Sister Catherine. She took us to the elevator, and we knew that we were going down to the Dean of Discipline's office. When she reached deep into the pocket of her habit, and she pulled out the key, and she placed it in the panel on the elevator door, and we knew we were going up to the convent. The doors opened. Anne and I stepped out. Sister Catherine did not. And the doors closed. And coming down the long, dark hallway of the convent was Mother Mary Antoine, the oldest nun in the convent. They didn't even allow her to come downstairs. She walked with 2 canes. She wore the habit all the way down to the floor, face pushed back, and her Coke bottom bottle glasses. It took her a long time to get down the hall. And when she did, she said, "Girls, come with me." And she took us to a room. "Take off all your clothes." And we did. And she put them in this big industrial dryer, our uniforms, our underwear, our stockings, our shoes, and she gave us what I can only describe as nun wraparounds to wear. And then she pushed us out onto the roof of the convent, locked the door, and told us to pray for our very souls. It was a beautiful spring day. The boys were practicing baseball in the field. The sun was shining. If this was our punishment, we would take it. But I said, "Really? That's in my permanent record?" We were graduating, and I thought, is this whole interview going to come down to something I did in high school in 1974? But she didn't stop. No. All through my college days, how I had dressed the statue of Sister Rosa Mystica in a hula skirt. How I had dropped the keg in the bathtub and broken it. The bathtub, not the keg. And how I had tied the chairs in the library together on top of the table somehow after the library had closed one evening. But really, I said, none of these things should... I am not finished. I see here none of this ended when you began your teaching. What is this about the hairy man? Okay, I thought, she's got everything. I don't know how she has all this in my permanent record. I'm going to tell her this, and then this is done. I said, I'll tell you about the hairy man. I was a new teacher. I was teaching in a very poor school. And after that year, they transferred me uptown to where all the doctors' and lawyers' children went. And I was maybe not as confident there. Not with the kids, but with the parents. On the day of back to school night, we were readying the little kindergarten classroom, and Nicholas started to cry. "What's the matter? I have to come tonight, right?" And I said, "Oh, no, Nicholas, only the mommies and daddies are going to come. You get to stay home with your grandma." "No, I have to come, I have to." And then I realized that Nicholas thought that I wouldn't know that his parents went with him. And I said, "Oh, Nicholas, what's the matter?" "You won't know my daddy." "I will." "Well, okay, you will. You'll know my daddy. He's hairy, hair all over his body, and he sleeps with my mother." "Good, Nicholas. I'm sure I'll know him." Well, that night I stood before these parents who came in and folded their hands in absolute silence and looked at me as if I had some important knowledge to impart on them, which I knew I did not possess. So I thought, well, they're going to like me or they're not. And I stood. "Good evening. My name is Karen Pillsworth, and I am your child's kindergarten teacher." And then I took a breath. And would the hairy man who sleeps with his wife please stand up? There was this gasp, and then Nicholas's dad stood up laughing, and so did everybody else, and I knew everything would be okay. But I said, really? That's in my permanent record? And I stood up and stretched out my hand. I can see that this interview is over. The woman stood. She looked at the computer screen one more time, and then she took my outstretched hand in both of hers, and she said, yes, this interview is definitely over. Welcome aboard. We have been looking for someone with your sense of humor and sense of adventure, and you can be sure that everything you do here will be dutifully noted in your permanent record.